make it interesting for everyone who's here as you did last year.
On le voit aussi dans l'atmosphère suave des saintes familles d'un Andrea del Sarto.
Just look at the hands. These are Christian hands. The concerto of 3, 4, 5, 6 hands that are happy that Jesus has taken his bath. What are the mannerist hands doing? You can see them dancing in the air. Look, they're not doing very much. Or they are surrounding the round flesh of other parts of their flesh, or they're closing on an object. Of the hundreds of hands painted by these artists, none of the hands actually do anything very much. Closing in on an object with 2 hands, or pointing your index finger somewhere. Sometimes that happens. For the very good reason that these are mannerists, and they are mannerists because it's the contrary to what being utilitarian. So I hope you followed me. It's not because I've looked at the paintings that I've deducted this or that another. And you can't deduct from a painting that the hands are doing this or not. And you shouldn't look at the painting. You should look at a database. I'm not just an art critic. I'm also an archivist. And I'm telling you what I'm telling you because of my database. And the database is the core of my work. So I'm using contemporary technology to look at classical art. And in the database, Scala, Google, or whatever, where you just press a button and you see Caravaggio and you see something, and then you press a button and you see another painter. No, I have seen all the data, looked in the details with all the other details, and I have 64 hands, 64, 128 or whatever, of Caravaggio and Bronzino, whatever, and without the database I wouldn't have been able to have it. And yes, this is it. the 400, 500, 600 hands of Correggio, Del Sarto, all the artists after Michelangelo, very few hands were actually doing something. They were just pointing their hands or closing in on something. All the other hands were doing nothing. We didn't know why. And this gives us a lead-in to the Avignon Forum theme. Doing nothing with your 10 fingers is luxury. And it leads to the suite of fingers, which is the most relaxed position of the hand with your broken wrist. It's like Adam in the fresco painted by Michelangelo in 1518, and Michelangelo is the precursor of mannerism. It's all the same suite of fingers. And Sarto looks at it from a maternal viewpoint here. It's the hand which is maternal. And look at the different viewpoints, but it's always the same figure. The hand pivoting 90 degrees. Sao, who is in love with Jupiter. The hands, with all its joints and phalanges and knuckles in Correggio, like the whole of the body, the knees, the elbows, natural movements together with unnatural movements, forcing the hand and the upwards and the fingers upwards, and the little finger moving up. This is what Correggio did. Look, there it is. It's not a relaxed hand, it's a raised hand. You can see raising your fingers, and this is unique. And you have to have a real database to tell this. Look at this big toe, which is slightly dislocated. Correggio's painting. Let's have the fourth suite of Bach to accompany that. This is the only artist whose fingers and toes curl up. With the up-curling fingers. And mannerists only have too much pose or no pose at all. But certainly not, the hands are certainly not doing anything. And this is at the core of the problem of power and culture, isn't it? The emergence of cultivated aristocracy in the 16th century didn't do anything very much in life, but they wanted to show that they weren't the bourgeois who possessed things. They had their hands grasping books, an object of culture, a dog, for instance, a large dog, and Bronzino's hands. It doesn't really touch anything, only with the fingertips. Perhaps a little nonchalant, a little scornful, a little aristocratic, these hands. And people had to have hands that did everything, but certainly not hold a pair of pliers. But I'm not making a political analysis here because I think a political analysis is of no interest whatsoever. I'm just looking at it from an aesthetic point of view. So let's have a look at the aesthetics of it once again. To conclude the hands of Corrège, here are a few examples of the way in which I prefer the hands. The hands are like birds here, birds which are moving together, as these hands are. You can see, magnificent, isn't it? The hands moving together. And this last detail is the greatest example of what Correggio invented. It's an ultra-mannerist. It is basically my conclusion. This is called the mystic marriage in Correggio. What's it all about? According to the legend, Catherine was a saint, and she rejected the request for marriage from a king because she said she was engaged to Jesus. Jesus, the child Jesus. And this is a mystic marriage, which was the mystic marriage was a theme which was very much in vogue in the Renaissance. So, of course, this was a dream, and the age of the partner was very young, a baby here, and preparing to put a ring on the finger of Sainte Catherine. This was painted 12 years before the Correggio painting, which is here. And the right hand holds the ring, held by his mother's hand, whereas with his left hand, he's taking the ring finger of St. Catherine. Her hand is supported by Mary's hand. You can see 3 hands on top of each other. And the music supports that, as you can hear. And we needed that monster of 15 hands to seal that unnatural marriage of a child and a saint who was born 4 centuries later. During the dusk, because not only historians like myself who are interested in the hands of Correggio, there's Catherine, there's John the Baptist, the Virgin Mary, the child Jesus. They are focusing on this mannerist hand, which creates that strange impression of flesh.
Je suis dans les...
Okay, before you go off to your coffee break, I was a little excited about Olivier Poivre d'Avort, the head of France Culture, and I was a little hit up about him because I thought he was being a bit too arrogant. And I had to say to you, look at how things fit together. I always produce the same texts. I've been doing the same texts over the past 20 years, and I'm going to put a text in a film, and then I'm going to make a show out of it, and out of a show I'm going to make a radio broadcast. And I put it all together. And people say, I always say the same thing. Yes, I always say the same thing, but I always improve what I say by putting it together differently.
Bon, alors, la question est...
So the question then is, how do you manage to keep decent relationships with people who talk about you, and whether the memory you leave people will be up to their reputation, up to your reputation that they hold?